February 19th, 1997, Bethel, Alaska. The air was biting cold as 16-year-old Evan Ramsay stepped off the school bus, a shotgun hidden down his pant leg. Inside Bethel Regional High, laughter echoed through the halls, moments before chaos. What came next wasn't just rage, but years of pain exploding all at once, changing the course of their lives forever. Here are 5 school shooters who flipped out at disrespectful interviewers.
I went to school, I had a gun and a knife in my book bag, and sat down in the cafeteria table and fired a first shot through the book bag.
February 27th, 2012, Chardon, Ohio. A 17-year-old student named TJ Lane walks into his high school cafeteria carrying a .22 caliber handgun and a knife hidden in his book bag. Without warning, he opens fire at a group of students. What followed left 3 teenagers dead, 3 more wounded, and an entire community in shock. But Lane's story didn't end with his arrest. It snowballed into a series of disturbing courtroom displays and a jaw-dropping prison escape attempt that would cement him as one of the most infamous school shooters in American history. Lane's attack that morning was calculated and deliberate. Surveillance footage showed him firing at a group of students, including several from Auburn Career Center, before being chased out of the building by heroic teachers. As Lane fled, he dropped the gun and a knife, making it easier for police to apprehend him near his parked car.
The teenage suspect in that high school shooting in Chardon, Ohio on Monday was charged today with 3 counts of murder.
The victims represented the best of Chardon High School: Daniel Parmertor, who dreamed of working with computers; Russell King Jr., who studied alternative energy; and Demetrius Hewlin, who hoped to join the football team but was tragically on time for school that fateful day. Lane's actions in the immediate aftermath were chilling. He showed little emotion during his confession, calmly answering investigators' questions about his motives and weapons. Lane revealed he had stolen the handgun from his uncle, the same weapon used to shatter so many lives. A psychiatric evaluation soon followed, revealing Lane suffered from psychosis, but was still competent to stand trial. By May 2012, the decision was made to charge him as an adult, a move that would ultimately lead to his life sentence. But it was Lane's behavior in court that truly set him apart. During his sentencing, he wore a white t-shirt with the word "killer" handwritten across the chest. Throughout the proceedings, Lane smiled and laughed as the victims' families delivered heartbreaking testimonies about their loss. When given the opportunity to speak, Lane delivered a shocking final insult to the grieving families. He cursed at them, gave them the middle finger, and described deriving pleasure from his crimes. The courtroom fell silent in stunned disbelief at his calculated cruelty. The judge responded by imposing the maximum penalty allowed: 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Lane's age at the time of the murders spared him from the death penalty, but ensured he would spend the rest of his life in prison. But Lane's story didn't end there. On September 11, 2014, he and another inmate, Clifford Opperud, staged a daring escape from Allen Correctional Institution. Using a makeshift ladder, they scaled a fence during recreation hours and disappeared into the surrounding woods. The escape triggered a massive manhunt. Lane was found hiding in the woods near the prison within hours, and Opperud was captured later that day in a nearby neighborhood. Both were promptly transferred to Ohio's Supermax facility in Youngstown. Lane now spends 23 hours per day in his cell, with only 1 hour of recreation allowed daily. Legal actions continued against Lane's family. Wrongful death suits from the victims' families resulted in a $2.7 million settlement, with each family receiving $890,000 after legal fees. Further lawsuits against the school district were ultimately dismissed, but the impact on the community remains. What drove Lane to commit such horrific acts remains a subject of debate. Friends described him as quiet and withdrawn, yet intelligent and seemingly normal. Some pointed to a difficult family background, while others noted a sudden change in behavior leading up to the attack. Investigators later revealed a possible motive tied to a breakup with his girlfriend, who had started dating one of the victims. Lane's actions, both during the shooting and in court, demonstrated a complete lack of remorse and a calculated attempt to inflict maximum pain on his victims' families. His story stands as a grim reminder of how deep-seated issues can fester beneath the surface, exploding in unimaginable violence.
I don't really believe there is a voice, to be honest with you.
Voice.
No, I don't think there is.
I'm telling you the truth. There is.
No. I mean, I feel you probably want to kill yourself because of what happened, but...
No, the voice is telling me to kill myself.
February 14th, 2018. Valentine's Day should have meant cards and flowers. Instead, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, would become an unthinkable tragedy. Nicholas Cruz, age 19, entered the building with a loaded AR-15 rifle and a backpack filled with ammunition clips marked with hate symbols. Over the next 6 minutes, he executed one of the deadliest T-school attacks in American history. Earlier that day, Cruz had taken an Uber to the school. He blended in with students leaving for the day, carrying his weapon concealed in a bag. What happened next would haunt the nation forever. The first shots echoed through the halls at 2:21 p.m. Students and staff, caught off guard, scrambled for cover as the fire alarm blared. Cruz moved methodically through classrooms, firing through door windows. The chaos was captured in shocking cell phone footage, showing terrified students hiding while gunshots rang out in the background.
Reports of gunfire came as students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School were about to leave. A code red alert was issued. The school was locked down, its pupils led out with their hands in the air. Those still trapped inside could only hide as gunshots rang out.
Within minutes, law enforcement swarmed the campus. Students fled with their hands in the air, following commands from armed officers. Helicopter footage shows the massive emergency response. Ambulances, fire trucks, and police vehicles staged around the perimeter, but the damage was already done. 14 students and 3 staff members lay dead. 17 more were wounded. Among the fallen were teachers who died protecting their students, and young lives with bright futures cut short. Nicholas Cruz slipped away from the scene by blending in with fleeing students. He walked to a nearby fast food restaurant and was apprehended just over an hour later. His capture brought only momentary relief. The horror of what he'd done was only beginning to sink in.
You didn't buy guns because the voice said, hey, today I like Mossbergs, tomorrow I like AR-15s. You like guns.
Can you call a psychologist?
During his initial interrogation, Cruz displayed disturbing behavior. Security footage shows him alone in the interrogation room, repeatedly hitting himself and muttering, "Help me." He claimed to hear voices commanding him to hurt himself and others. The detective pressed him, challenging the truth of his story, but Cruz remained insistent. The investigation quickly revealed troubling warning signs. Cruz had a long history of behavioral problems dating back to preschool. He'd been transferred between schools multiple times, often for discipline issues. His social media presence was filled with violent imagery, hate symbols, and threats. The FBI received multiple tips about his potential for violence, including one specifically mentioning his desire to become a professional school shooter. Tragically, those warnings fell through bureaucratic cracks.
At this staging area, relieved parents are being reunited with their children. But even as this community begins to mourn its dead, one stark fact remains. This year alone, there have already been 5 separate deadly school shootings.
As the legal process began, Cruz's defense focused on mental health issues and his troubled upbringing. They claimed fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and childhood trauma impaired his judgment. The prosecution countered with evidence of careful planning and deliberate cruelty. During the trial, the jury heard heart-wrenching testimony from survivors and families of the victims. They watched security footage from inside the school and listened to 911 calls. The evidence was overwhelming. Cruz had methodically planned his attack, even researching previous mass shootings for inspiration. In October 2022, the jury recommended life imprisonment without parole. Many families of victims expressed outrage, believing the death penalty was the only just outcome for such a calculated massacre. The judge sentenced Cruz to 34 consecutive life terms, one for each victim killed or wounded. But the story didn't end in the courtroom. Survivors and families channeled their grief into activism, forming the Never Again MSD movement. They pushed for changes in gun laws and school safety measures. Their efforts led to the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act, which raised the minimum age to purchase firearms in Florida, implemented red flag laws, and increased school security funding. The Parkland shooting became a national rallying point for gun control advocates. Student survivors became prominent voices in the debate, organizing the massive March for Our Lives protests. The tragedy forced America to confront uncomfortable questions about guns, mental health, and school safety. In June 2024, Cruz settled a civil lawsuit with shooting survivor Anthony Borges, granting Borges rights to Cruz's name. This legal maneuver effectively silenced Cruz from profiting or gaining notoriety from his crime, even posthumously. The Parkland shooting left scars that will never fully heal. The once pristine school building where the massacre occurred was finally demolished in June 2024, replaced by a memorial garden. But the impact of that day lives on in the hearts of survivors, the families of victims, and the ongoing fight to prevent future tragedies. As we examine the twisted legacy of Nicholas Cruz, we're forced to confront the failures that allowed this tragedy to happen, and the hard lessons about school safety, mental health, and gun violence in America.
Minutes after 16-year-old Brenda Spencer started shooting, police officers arrived at the scene ready to take any necessary action in order to avoid any further bloodshed. After neighbors, nearby residents, and all the school children were safely evacuated, police mapped out their strategy.
January 29, 1979, San Diego, California. The morning peace around Grover Cleveland Elementary School shatters as police officers sprint toward the sound of gunfire. What began as just another Monday would end with a deadly mark on American history. Brenda Ann Spencer was only 16 years old when she climbed out of bed in her small, cluttered house, grabbed the .22 caliber rifle her father gave her for Christmas, and pointed it out her bedroom window. Just across the street, children gathered for school as she waited for the clock to hit 8:30 a.m. That's when her carefully planned attack began. For the next 20 minutes, Spencer fired 36 rounds into the crowd of students, teachers, and staff. Principal Burton Ragg and custodian Michael Suchar both charged into the line of fire, desperately trying to shield students from harm. They paid with their lives. 8 children, along with a responding police officer, suffered gunshot wounds, but survived. As police arrived, they quickly realized Spencer was barricaded inside her home with hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Officers knew the wrong move could spark another round of violence. They evacuated nearby homes, set up a perimeter, and called in the SWAT team to begin a tense 6-hour standoff. Inside that cramped house, Spencer took a phone call from a local reporter. When asked why she'd opened fire, her chilling words would become infamous.
"I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day."
That callous statement inspired the international hit song I Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats. But for San Diego, it was a nightmare made real.
I'd been drinking pretty much the whole week before that. Prior to that, I had missed school like the whole previous week. I was just, they call it here on a roll, you know, just using constantly and drinking. And so that whole week ahead of time it's pretty much a blur, you know.
Spencer's father claimed she showed no signs of violence before the attack, but school officials and neighbors remembered differently. The troubled teen frequently hunted birds for sport in the neighborhood and once shot out the school's windows with a BB gun. Months before the shooting, mental health professionals urged her father to admit Brenda to a hospital for her depression. He refused. Instead, he gifted her the rifle with a scope and 500 rounds of ammunition. As police negotiators tried to reach Spencer, she fired at them from her barricaded position. Officer Robert Robb, responding to calls for help, suffered a gunshot wound to the neck. SWAT officers prepared for the worst. They had a green light to shoot Spencer if she emerged firing, but the standoff ended without further bloodshed. Hungry and exhausted, Spencer finally surrendered after negotiators promised her a Burger King Whopper. She laid her rifle, a pellet gun, and boxes of ammunition on the ground before walking out to face arrest.
There's an independent lab test from the same blood samples that show I had blood alcohol levels and a lethal amount of drugs in my system.
Charged as an adult, Spencer pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder, 8 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, and 1 count of assault on a peace officer. She received 2 concurrent 25-to-life sentences. 9 counts of attempted murder were dismissed. Spencer's time in prison brought new allegations. At her 2001 parole hearing, she claimed her father physically and sexually abused her, a claim he denied. She later blamed alcohol and drugs for her actions, although tests at her arrest showed no substances in her system. Despite multiple parole attempts, Spencer remains behind bars at the California Institution for Women in Chino. The impact of Spencer's actions rippled through generations. The school was eventually demolished, but a memorial stands at the site, honoring Principal Rag and Custodian Suchar. Their sacrifice saved countless children that day. Brenda Spencer's calculated attack marked one of the first modern school shootings in America. Her cold explanation, "I don't like Mondays," became a symbol of senseless violence. But her legacy is far darker. As school shootings multiplied across America, Spencer's name became infamous as the first in a tragic new chapter of American violence. If you thought this case was shocking, wait until you see how another young shooter's rage exploded during a tense prison interview. The next story will make you question how far some people will go.
Students say 15-year-old Kipland Kinkle walked into a crowded cafeteria and just started shooting.
May 21st, 1998, Thurston High School in Springfield, Oregon. This was the morning Kipland Kinkle, a quiet, troubled freshman, walked into the crowded cafeteria and opened fire. By the time students tackled him, 2 classmates were dead, 25 wounded, and the nightmare of modern school shootings had begun in earnest. But Kinkle's violence didn't start at Thurston. It began the day before, when he murdered his own parents in their home. That rampage started a 24-hour period that would change school security forever. Born August 30th, 1982, Kipland Kip Kinkle grew up in a seemingly normal family. His parents, Bill and Faith, were both respected educators. From the outside, their rural Walterville home seemed like a place where nothing could go wrong. But inside, Kip battled demons few understood.
Do you recall how many students were in this area? Okay. Do you know this student that you hit? Okay. Do you remember how many shots you fired in this area?
The warning signs emerged early. By age 12, Kinkle began hearing voices, 3 distinct male voices that grew increasingly hostile and violent. But he was terrified to tell anyone, convinced people would think he was a freak. Instead, he fixated on weapons, convinced the Chinese would invade America, and only the well-armed would survive. Despite his parents' best efforts, Kip's mental health deteriorated rapidly. He was diagnosed with depression, placed on Prozac, then allowed to discontinue treatment after 3 months. As his paranoia increased, so did his obsession with guns. He collected firearms, built explosives, and secretly amassed an arsenal.
98, the time is at 1:51 p.m. and next to me is Kipland Kinkle, K-I-N-K-E-L.
The breaking point came on May 20th, 1998. Kinkle was caught with a stolen handgun at school and faced immediate expulsion. His father picked him up from the police station, and the 2 drove home in tense silence. For Kinkle, this was the end of everything. The voices told him there was only one way out. That afternoon, he killed his father with a .22 rifle, then waited for his mother to return. When Faith arrived, Kinkle met her in the garage, told her he loved her, then shot her repeatedly. He covered both bodies with sheets, played opera music on repeat, and spent the night listening to the voices command him to finish what he'd started. The next morning, Kinkle donned a long trench coat, loaded 3 guns and over 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and drove his mother's Ford Explorer to Thurston High. He parked a block away, walked through the tennis courts, and entered the school.
He acted so calm about it. I thought it was just like a prank or something. And he acted like he had a fake gun, like a cap gun. He was just going.
At 7:55 a.m., Kinkle entered the cafeteria. He pulled out his Ruger .22 rifle and began firing at random. Ben Walker and Mikkel Nicolaisen fell first. Chaos erupted as students dove for cover or tried to escape.
He was trying to get pistols. He had 2 pistols in his bow. And the other kid that was with me, when we tackled him, he got shot.
As Kinkle tried to reload, several students, including those already wounded, tackled him to the ground. Even pinned beneath his classmates, he fired one more shot before they subdued him.
Cafeteria, and he started shooting people inside there, and as I was running out the front door, he shot me in the back of the arm.
His mother says yesterday she was numb. Today, she's angry.
2:30 this morning, I just was bawling. I couldn't believe that one child could do this. I'm very angry at him.
When police arrived, Kinkle was still screaming about the voices in his head. They found 2 bullets taped to his chest, one .22 and one 9mm. In case I ran out of ammunition, he later explained, so I could reload and kill myself. The investigation revealed an arsenal of weapons and explosives at the Kinkle home. His journals detailed years of paranoid delusions and escalating violence, but nothing could explain why a seemingly ordinary teenager would commit such extraordinary violence.
The thing I liked the most about him was his eyes. They were so gentle.
But there's nothing gentle about this day, except the response from all of these people, some who don't know the victims, but reach out to help. And right now, Cheyenne Schreier can use some help with a tremendous loss.
In court, Kinkle pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and 26 counts of attempted murder. He received a 111-year sentence without parole, the harshest juvenile sentence in Oregon at the time. Despite national debates about juvenile justice and mental illness, Kip Kinkle remains incarcerated, his infamy enduring as a grim milestone in America's history of school violence.
Change guns?
I think I struggled to get like I should.
You were struggling to get another one out? Which one would that have been? Probably the Glock? The Glock's the 9mm, right?
Today, Thurston High School stands as both a memorial and a warning. The benches, tiles, and trees outside remember the victims, but also mark the beginning of a new era in school security and mental health awareness. Kinkle's story is a complex tragedy of untreated mental illness, access to weapons, and a system that failed to recognize the warning signs. While his name lives on in legal challenges and debates about juvenile sentencing, the scars left by his actions are a permanent part of America's struggle with school violence. But this story doesn't end here. Next, we examine another case that changed everything. The moment school shootings became a national crisis. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the dark realities behind these tragedies.
What were you hoping to achieve that day?
I had planned on ranting and raving where I fired the first shot. And I planned on conveying how I was feeling.
February 19th, 1997, Bethel, Alaska. 16-year-old Evan Ramsay steps off the school bus, a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun concealed down his pant leg. It's 0 degrees outside, but inside Bethel Regional High School, the tension is about to reach a breaking point. Ramsay's plan isn't just violence. It's a scream for help from a life marked by broken homes, relentless bullying, and a family history of violence that started long before that cold morning. Evan's journey to this moment reads like a tragic blueprint. His father, Don Ramsay, dubbed the Rambo of Alaska, once stormed the Anchorage Times newspaper office with 2 guns and enough ammunition for a war, all because they refused to publish his political letter. That earned Don 10 years in prison, leaving Evan's mother to spiral into alcoholism, and the children bouncing between abusive foster homes. By age 10, Evan had already attempted suicide once, and the scars from sexual and physical abuse in foster care ran deep. His new guardian, School Superintendent Sue Hare, gave him stability, but the damage was done. Despite these hardships, Evan wasn't a classic loner. He had friends, a close bond with his little brother, and a favorite art teacher in Mrs. Athanas. But the bullying at Bethel High was relentless, targeting his mixed heritage and social awkwardness. Kids called him Screech, after the nerdy character from TV. The few times he reported the abuse, nothing changed. The school tried to help, but the pain kept piling up. 2 weeks before the shooting, things took a dark turn. Evan told 2 friends about his plan and warned others to watch for something big. His girlfriend had just broken up with him, but the real trigger was years of accumulated pain. He wrote chilling notes the night before, one specifically targeting Principal Ron Edwards.
I was told this will be his last year, but I know it.
Will be his last year. That morning, he slid the loaded shotgun into his pants, grabbed extra shells, and boarded the bus to school. As Evan entered the school lobby around 8:45 a.m., he pulled out the shotgun and fired into a group of students. Josh Palacios, a popular basketball player, was struck in the chest. Josh wasn't one of Evan's tormentors. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The chaos that followed was pure panic. Students and teachers scrambled for cover, some hiding in classrooms, others running out into the freezing tundra. Mrs. Athanas, hearing the commotion, confronted Evan in the lobby, trying to talk him down. "Put the gun down, Evan. You don't have to do this," she pleaded. For a moment it looked like he might listen, but seeing another teacher behind her made him skittish. He pointed the gun at her, then ran off toward the gym. During a brief lull, Principal Edwards stepped into the lobby to check on Josh. Evan caught him trying to retreat to his office and shot him twice. Mrs. Athanas confronted Evan again, risking her life to stop him. But the situation was spiraling beyond anyone's control. Evan fled up the stairs toward the library. Bethel police had arrived and he fired once more, this time toward the lockers. Police returned fire. That's when everything changed.
Police officer fired a shot back at me, and it was at the moment that I got shot at that I changed my mind.
When Evan was finally confronted by armed officers, the reality of his situation hit. He shouted, "I don't want to die," dropped the shotgun, and surrendered. The rampage was over after just 15 minutes, but the damage was permanent. 2 dead, 2 wounded, and an entire community traumatized. The aftermath was a mix of grief, anger, and soul-searching. Bethel's close-knit community struggled to make sense of the tragedy. Mrs. Athanas fell into depression, unable to create art for a year. Superintendent Hare instantly resigned, never returning to her office. The school district implemented new security measures and anti-bullying programs, hoping to prevent future tragedies. Evan's trial was complex, with prosecutors debating whether to try him as an adult or juvenile. Ultimately, he was sentenced to 210 years in prison, later reduced to 2 99-year terms. He'll be eligible for parole in 2066 when he'll be 85 years old. His 2 accomplices, tried as juveniles, were released at 19. In prison, Evan finally earned his high school diploma. He spends most days working prison jobs, listening to heavy metal music, and reflecting on his actions. Rarely does he get visitors. His parents died within months of each other in 2005. He's lost touch with his brothers. His only connection to the outside world is through letters from strangers and TV shows. Looking back, Evan says he doesn't want sympathy or to blame video games, despite his earlier claims. He speaks out now to help others understand the rage that consumed him. His message is clear: pay attention to troubled kids, follow up on warning signs, and don't ignore cries for help. He knows nothing can undo what he did, but maybe his story can prevent another tragedy. The Bethel shooting remains Alaska's only school shooting, but its lessons echo through every community struggling with youth violence. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun, it's unchecked pain and isolation.